Nun hey, no. No,
Start at the
today
bottom of Nun Hey Nun Vav, no?
we stop. Hold on a second. I'm sorry, right?
We stop at the bottom of
Today's
Nun Hey
Nun Vav.
And we stopped at the bottom of Nun Hey Beis.
Okay.
You're freezing up on my Zoom.
Yeah. Okay. Let me.
Enter your meeting ID followed by your participant ID followed by recording in progress.
Okay. Can you hear me a little better now? Not frozen now? Yeah? Okay. Let me know if somebody texts me or something if I lose the crowd or middle. Okay, let's try it again. Tana Rabbanon. Ein loichen behema b'mois ma'aser sheni. So you're not allowed to take an animal. We were talking again, let's just chazer. You're not allowed to take the whole shayla we got into is whether you mekadosh an isha with ma'aser sheni. So is ma'aser sheni considered yours? Because ma'aser sheni, what do? You just take it up. You get to keep the fruit, and you get to take it up to Yerushalayim. You take it up to Yerushalayim. You eat it there, or you plate it, and you eat it. Meaning it's really yours. Right. So the question is that considered kedusha that you can't use it to marry a woman, or not? And then we have the same thing by hektish. So we're saying here the Brisa says, you're not allowed to buy an animal with mois ma'aser sheni. Meaning, if you don't want to schlep up all your fruit, which can be very difficult, so you could take the fruit, you could take the money and you paid it onto other money and you bring it up. But you can't, you would think it's an easy or a relatively easy thing to do is buy an animal with it. But anyways, what you could do is you could buy meat with it. Once you get to Yerushalayim, you bring up the money to Yerushalayim, you could buy meat with it. Maybe just bring up an animal, right? So we're saying you're not allowed to do that because it needs to be something that's in your hand, right? And an animal is not in your hand. And also it's very difficult to get an animal up all the way up to Yerushalayim. So you're not allowed to take a behemoth ma'aser sheni. On to Aleph now, today's daf. Im lokach, and that's what you did. So if you did it by mistake, you give it back you go and give it back, whatever the sale was that you did, meaning you bought an animal, right? So what you do is you go back to the seller and say, by the way, by mistake, I gave you ma'aser sheni money instead of regular money. So therefore, give me back the money, I give you back the animal, and everybody's fine. The mazid, but if it's done on purpose, then you have to go bring up the animal to Yerushalayim. Right? Fine. Meaning the animal is considered ma'aser sheni. Some of Yehuda b'medvar mamurim b'mischaven v'lokach tilu l'shem shlamim. That's all when you had kavana and you thought you were buying a korban shlamim. Right? Like Rashi says, the derech is to take behemoth that you do with kesef meiser and you bring it up as a korban shlamim. But if your kavana was to take the mois ma'aser sheni and let it go to chulin, then then whether you did it on purpose or whether you did it by mistake, you have to go give it back to the original owner, right? Meaning to the guy that you bought it from. But didn't we learn in the Mishnah that if you married a woman, then she's considered married? Right? Again, here we're saying that if you bought an animal with Ma'aser Sheni money and you did it for the animal not to be a carbon, then you have to give back the animal and you have to take back the money. Right? So then how come Rabbi Yehuda holds by a woman, a guy who marries a woman b'mezid with Ma'aser Sheni money? Why is it that he's considered married? You should have to say the marriage is no good. Right? Because the woman knows she's not going to have the Ma'aser Sheni money become chulin. She, meaning the woman, he does it on purpose, right? That means the woman knows that she's getting married with Ma'aser Sheni money. So she knows that it's not going to, a woman has a brain. It's not like an animal. What does an animal know? Right? But a woman knows that, oh, I'm accepting Ma'aser Sheni for my marriage money. That means I'm going to have to go up to Yerushalayim. You're going to have to go up to Yerushalayim, and she's going to have to go up to Yerushalayim to spend the money there. If she agrees, she agrees. Right? So Rabbi Yirmiyah had a kasha. What about a behemoth tameya? Right? Avodim and karkais. The adam yedeya shein mois ma'aser sheni mitzalin alan. A person knows that you can't put ma'aser sheni money onto behemoth tameya, avodim and karkais. Right? Like we said before, you're not lechatchila allowed to put ma'aser sheni money onto an animal. So you're not allowed to put it onto avodim. You're not allowed to put it onto karka. You're not allowed to put it into anything of those things. It has to be something that you could eat. So v'tanan ain't like a behemoth tameya avodim karkais a few Yerushalayim. You can't even do it within Yerushalayim. And if you do, you have to pay back. Yochel Kenegdon literally means you have to eat the opposite, meaning you have to pay back the Ma'aser Sheni. Right? So Gemara answers, and we're talking about not a woman. We're talking about a woman who's a chaveira. Right? A chaver. Chaver meaning a chaver is a Talmud Chacham. A chaveira is a female, an educated. I guess that would be a woman nowadays. Women nowadays that are more educated, right? So since she knows, she knows that when she gets married, it's not going to become chulin. Fine. So if by mistake he bought an animal, or he bought, a tameya that he can't use as a carbon, or an eved, or karka, then yochel kenegdon, he has to eat opposite. He has to replace the money. The Gemara says, why don't we just make him give it back to the buyer? We said on the top of the Amud that if by mistake you bought an animal with Ma'aser Sheni money, so what do? You go back to the buyer, you go back to the seller, and you tell him, listen, I couldn't do it. Right? So again, why don't we just say they give it back? Shmuel on Talmud Beis now. Isha Barach, it's talking about where the guy ran away. The seller ran away. Right? So Mamela, since he ran away, you can't give it back to him. So now what's your next best option is that you pay it back. So the Gemara asks, the time of the Barach, the reason is because he ran away. So let's say you did run away. So who gets the knas? Right? Meaning, if the guy would not have run away, then we're going to give a knas to the seller. Meaning why? Because this guy sold an animal. Guy bought the animal with Ma'aser Sheni money. So now he loses a sale. Right? Why should the guy? He didn't do anything wrong. The purchaser bought Ma'aser Sheni from him, not the seller. The nigga said, "Lekeach, why don't we give a knas to the lekeach?" Meaning the lekeach should have to take new money and go bring it up to Yerushalayim. When I answer is an interesting muscle. Lav akbar aganav, the mouse is not the crook. Elachur aganav, the hole is the crook. Meaning, if a mouse goes and grabs food, where's he putting the food? If he has no place to hide the food, he's not going to steal the food. Right? So he would not.
Now cattle salesmen have to ask the guy if he has my Shani money. What does that mean?
He's saying, you mean that's every time he has to ask?
That's what you're saying. Did he pay taxes on this? Did he steal it from his wife's brother? Is it my Shani money? How did he make it? Was he honest in business? What guy he's trying to sell a cow? What's the big deal?
Well, that's the question. Does he have to clarify whether it's Ma'aser Sheni? Because of this, every time the seller sells something to somebody, say, hey, by the way, is this Ma'aser Sheni money? I don't think so. But if it happens to be that it ends up being Ma'aser Sheni money, so then, think. Again, the Gemara is going to ask on this right away, because but Rashi's svara is if the mouse would not have the hole to hide in, then he would not steal. And Mamela, it's the hole that should take the blame. It's a little hard to understand, at least the Havamina, but which is really sort of the Gemara's next kasha. Right? If Eloi Akbara, if it wouldn't be for the mouse, what'd the hole do? Right? I mean, that's a pretty... We're saying that the seller of this animal is the hole, right? And the person who used the Ma'aser Sheni is the mouse. And it's not for the guy wants to spend Ma'aser Sheni money, but he has to have somebody who to buy the meat from. So Mamela, had he not had this seller selling him meat or animal, then he would not have been able to spend the Ma'aser Sheni money. Right? So if that's the case, so then therefore he has to have the knas. So then Rashi, the Gemara asks, that's very nice, but the bottom line is, the guy who sold the animal wouldn't have bought Ma'aser Sheni money illegally had the guy not given him Ma'aser Sheni money. Right? You can't blame the hole because the mouse is a crook. The Gemara says, "Mistavra kol heicha deika isura hasam kansinon." I can't say I understand this one either, but the Gemara says Mistavra. Right? If wherever the isser is, there's the knas. Right? Meaning, right now, who has the isser money? Who has the Ma'aser Sheni money? The seller or the buyer? It originated from the buyer. Now it's in the seller's hands. Since it's in the seller's hands, he's the one that gets the knas. Right? Yeah, that's basically it. Because right now we have to. You're not going to give a knas to the buyer. The buyer already spent the Ma'aser Sheni money. Yeah. Okay. So that's that. Zok the Mishnah. Next Mishnah. HaMekadesh ba'orla. Anybody who's Mekadesh ba'orla, the Klaya Kerem, the Shoran Niskol, Ubegla Rufa. Right. So again, orla is the first 3 years. That's also ba'hanal. Klaya Kerem is klayim of a vineyard. That means when you take a vineyard and you plant any grain in the vineyard. Shoran Niskol is a shor that killed somebody, so therefore it gets killed. Egla Rufa is when you find a dead body around the town. You have no idea who killed it, where killed it, so you take a calf and you snap its neck. The Poira Mitzayra is that the Mitzayra is being 2 birds after the tzaras. One gets shafted and one gets sent away. Ubesei or Nazir, the hair of a Nazir. Peter Chamor is the what do you call it? The Bechar of a donkey. Right, so he has to be paided. If he's not paided, he has to snap its neck also. Also Bechalav, that's meat and milk. Chulin Sheneshatu Ba'azara, and Chulin, that's shechted in the Beis HaMikdash. Ain't Mekudeshes. Let's say a guy uses any of those. She's not Mekudeshes. Right? Because these are all Asr Bahana. Machron B'Kiddush B'Demeyan, but if he sold them and then took the money and used that money to marry her, then she is married. Right? Meaning why? Because it doesn't how do you call it? What's the word? Doesn't carry over. Meaning the Kedusha by Shemitah, Lamashal, if you take Shemitah food, right, Shemitah vegetables or fruit, and you buy something with it, right, so now that new money gets Kedusha Shvius also. That's not the case over here. Let's say you had somebody gives you somebody brings you a McDonald's cheeseburger. Right, so that's also about it. There's nothing to do with it. But then you flipped it to a guy and you got a few dollars from a guy. That money is not also bahana. So that money you could use to marry someone. Okay, so that's basically all these Yisuran are you're not allowed to do. So now the Gemara goes through for the next couple of blocks what the sources are that all these things are also bahana. So but arla minala. How do we know that arla is also bahana? The Tanya Arelim la yoichal. Arelim can't eat. That only tells you not allowed to eat arla. How do you know it's also bahana? How do you know that you're not allowed to benefit from it? You can't use it to dye things. You can't use it for fuel. The Rabbis is cool, it's coming to include all of them. The Klaya Kerem, Minalon. How do we know? Amar Chizkiya, Amar Krop, Pentikdash, Pentukad Eish. So Klaya Kerem says that it should be Tikdash, right? Tikdash is Eish Tukad, meaning don't use Klaya, because if you're going to give up your vineyard. Pen Tukad Eish. Right? Maybe if you're going to do it, then maybe fire is going to take over your whole vineyard. Maybe it's going to be like as if it became Kodesh. So therefore, it means like the word Kedusha, which means you're not allowed to use it. So too, you're not allowed to use either. So, but something that's hektish always does hold on to its money. Meaning, you have something to base on mikdash that's hektish. An animal is hektish. Right? So then, and you buy something with it, so then the money becomes hektish. So too here. So klaya kerem, toifus is dam of the l'chulin. So maybe klaya kerem should also. Ella, so meaning that's what you would say if you're learning it from hektish. The machbar to get the chizki, you would say like the first shot that it's from pentikdash pentugan eish. Fine. Shor on nisko. So minayin, how do you know that a shor that's supposed to get skila? How do we know that it's also bahana? The Tanya mashmasha shenemastok yisokal ashor. You have to give skila to the shor. Any addition avela. Don't I know that it's an avela? Unavela suru ba'achila. We know that an avela, so it wasn't shechted, right? If you're killing the shor, you know it's shechted. So, I mean, you know it's not shechted. So how? Of course it's also. So what do you have to say that it got stoned and you don't have to eat its basar? But it teaches us that if you shechted it after the Gemar din, it's still also ba'achila. Meaning, of course, if the animal got stoned, we don't need a pasuk to tell you that it's also ba'achila. But we do need a pasuk to tell you that you didn't stone the animal, you shechted it before you had a chance to stone it. It's also ba'achila. Okay, bahana mina. How do you know it's the bahana? The owner of the shor is clean. So what does that mean? My mashma. That's coming to teach us that somebody is clean from his belongings, meaning he does not have anything to it. He doesn't have any ana from it. He became totally nucky from this animal because this animal killed a human. Right? How do you know that this lo yachal b'sarai is talking about after the Gemar Din. Maybe if you shechted it after the Gemar Din, it's mutter. And the lo yachol is coming to tell you where it actually got skila. It's also. Anytime the Torah uses any of these three terminologies of not eating, it means echad isra achilu, echad isra hana. Until the pasuk tells you that you're allowed to get hana from it, like it does by nevela, right? By nevela, it says that you're not allowed to eat it, but you can give it to the ger. You're allowed to, so you are allowed to get hana from it. But other than that, anytime it says any word lo yochel tells you that it's also, it tells you that it's also bahana. Right? So therefore, maybe the reason why it says you can't eat it, that it tells you that you're not allowed to benefit from anything from it. So the Gemara answers, that's only where you're learning out this from the word lo yachel. Here it's different. Meaning when the Torah tells you don't eat something, so then we know that it means don't eat it and don't benefit from it. Here, we know you're not allowed to eat the shor, not from lo yachel, but from the word skila, that you have to give it skila. Because if you're going to say that it was written to tell you Isra no, nichtav kro lo yehena. Why does it have to say lo yachel? Why don't you just say don't benefit? Inami lo yachel es besarai. Don't eat its butter. Right? I'm sorry, lo yachel, don't eat it. Es besarai lameli. Why do you need to say es besarai? Then afagav the shachte kein basar asar. Even though he shechted it like regular basar, still it's also to benefit from it. Okay, so the maskul mazuch beim hani milech the badak tzur is very interesting. It's really a regular night. We can have there's a lot to talk about here. But maskul marzutra beim hani mili hechad the badak tzur b'shachat. Maybe that's only where he checked into the rock and he shechted with a rock, meaning he used a rock to shecht the animal, and he made sure that it's very smooth to shecht it. The mystic is skila, because then it looks like skila, meaning you're supposed to stone it, so you also use the stone to shecht it. So and then when you use the stone to shecht it, so then it's osabana. But
Your machshava doesn't have anything to do with it. The machshava is that he's not stoning it.
No, he's supposed to stone it, but here he used a rock instead of a knife. So therefore, that looks like skila. So then the animal will be also. But let's say he shechted it with a knife. Again, he's not supposed to do either one of these. This thing is high of skila. I'm not exactly sure why he's doing this, right? Because he's not allowed to do it, right? It's supposed to be skila, if that's a word. Right? So what did he do instead? He shechted it. So if he shechted with a stone, so it's similar to skila, okay, so maybe it's also bano. Maybe if he shechted with a knife, it wouldn't be also. The Gemara says, Midi sakim be'iraisa. Does it say anywhere in the Torah that you have to shecht with a knife, which is a fascinating thing? Right? Meaning something as major as shchita doesn't even say it beferish in the Torah. It doesn't say anywhere you're supposed to shecht with a knife.
How did we know? How did we know that we were supposed to use a knife?
We don't even know where you're supposed to shecht an animal, meaning where on the body you're supposed to shecht. It just says shecht the animal. It doesn't say with what, how, nothing. It's almost like tefillin.
You're allowed to shecht with a reed. I don't understand. Like a bamboo, you could shecht with a bamboo. That's how a person could be a tamei and shecht in the base of mikdash with a long knife made out of a reed. So
correct.
Who says it has to be a knife like metal?
Well, that's Allah Moshe Messina.
Okay.
Allah Moshe Messina. But the Gemara is saying it doesn't. You can't start differentiating between a knife and a stone, because it doesn't even. The Torah doesn't say anything about it. So Tanya says another thing in the Brayso. B'chol shoysin, you can shecht with anything. Bein betzur, bein beschuchis, bein bekruma shokana. There you go, Rachman. Right? You can do it whether you do it with a rock or a glass or a reed or anything like that. It's mutter. So you can't start differentiating between whether this thing is going to become mutter bahana or asavana based on what you use it to shaft it. Okay, so now that you're learning out the Isra Achila and Isra No from the pasuk Lo Yachol Hai Balashar Noki L'Mayasa. Then what do we do with the Balashar Noki? Right? What do we do with the pasuk of Balashar Noki again? Because we're learning out from the word Lo Yachol, like any place else in the Torah. Anytime the Torah says the word Yachol, or any form of the word Achila that you're not allowed to, that's Achila, Isra Achila and Isra No. So my answer is Lanos Oiroi. It's coming to tell us that the Isser that you're not even allowed to get, not only you're not allowed to get enough from the meat, you're not even allowed to get enough from the skin. Don't eat, that's talking about the meat. The sarai also, the basar is also, the skin is mutter. Fine. So the more answer lahanach tanoi the mafkile hai balashar naki lechatzi kaifer. So the Tanoi that learns out the Balashar Noki is for Chatzi Koifer. Now Balashar Noki, that's referring to Koifer is when you have a Shora Muad, right? So Shora Muad, we're getting to this Be'ez Hashem in a month from now. Right? You have a Shora Muad who gores 3 times. So then that Shor, after that, he kills somebody. The owner is on the hook, and he's got to pay koifer for the body that it's for the worth of the person that it was killed, right? But if a animal kills that's not a muad, so he has to pay chatzi nizik, right? It was some a fluke thing that an animal killed, so then the owner has to pay chatzi nizik. So you would think, okay, if he killed somebody, he has to pay chatzi koifer. So we say no, balashar noki. The balashar is clean. Well, that's one thing that we learn out from Balashar Noki, Ula de Mei Vladas, and also if the shor gores a woman who's pregnant and then she loses the fetus, right? He also doesn't have to pay for that. Hanaras Ayraminolu, so big, but the bottom line is that he needs the pasuk Balashar Noki for these things. So how does he know that you're not allowed to benefit from the skin of a shor nisko? My answer is me'es besoroi. It says from the word es besoroi, es hatofel besoroi. Anything that's toffel to the meat. Right? So that's the skin. The skin is toffel to the meat. The idach, right? And the other shita, what's he going to do with es? On to the aleph now. Es loy darish. She doesn't darshan the word es. Kedatanya Shimon Amsuni, famous Gemara here. Hashem Amsuni v'amri lo Nechemia Amsuni. Hayadarish kol es in Shabbatar. He darshan every es in the Torah what it's coming to include. Once he got to you should fear Hashem. Pirish, he stepped away from it. Right? How can you have es Hashem Elekecha Tira? Hashem, your God, you should fear. Who are you adding to with the word es there? Who else is on the level of Hashem that you can have Yiras Shemayim? Right? So Amrulay Talmida, Rebbe, Kolas and Shajoshim, okay, so now you're stepping away and you're not going to dash in that es, so then it's either all or nothing. Either es comes to include something or it doesn't come to include something. Amalemi said to them, Kishem Shekivalti Sfar Ladrisha, the same way I got schar for darshaning, them Kachibati ala Prisha, I'm going to get schar for taking it back. Until Rabbi Kiva came along and said, Es Hashem Elekecha Tira, you should fear Hashem, your God, the rabbis, Talmidei Chachamim, that comes to include that you have to fear Talmidei Chachamim. Right? So, Memela, therefore, we're going with the Shita, Nechemia Amsuni, and Shimon Amsuni, who didn't dash in the word es. So Memela, es, hatofel besoroi, he doesn't have that as a drasha, right? And then, yes, so some of the Mefarshim say, the article brings it down the footnote also, that, so why is Rabbi Akiva saying, as Hashem Elikechatira? I don't know if it has to do with Inyana de Yom or not, right? But Rabbi Akiva lost 24,000 Talmidim. They said must be that the S is that you have to fear, you have to fear Talmidei Chachamim. So one of the Mefarshim says that maybe that's why Rabbi Akiva decided to darshan that. Okay, we will stop here. The next couple blot also continue with the sources for the Yisurei Hana for the rest of the Mishnah. All right, this time we should really mean it when we